Marvin Divine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming. It's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
Hello folks, welcome back to the program. Goeiedag Zuid-Afrika, wat is hier Jang? Herzlich willkommen once again to Chris Wyatt Reports. This is Chris live in central Pennsylvania with a special guest today, Mr. Errol Naidoo, who is the director of Rescue SA Civil Rights Alliance. We're going to talk about the South African government and its violation of basic human rights. I think it should be an interesting conversation. Talk about race-based laws, talk about the laws that are crafted that violate the very constitution crafted by a majority population under a post-apartheid government, and how the government of South Africa doesn't live up to the expectations of the Constitution. And with that, no further ado, Mr. Naidoo, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Colonel. Good to be with you.
It's a pleasure. Listen, the title might be a little cheeky. I'm sure there's some ANC politicians who are scratching their head going, what do you mean, human rights violation? What has the ANC done to violate human rights? So tell us a little bit about the Alliance, if you can, so people understand, because I think a lot of people may not be familiar with it. They're familiar with other civic organizations like Dear SA and some of the other groups out there, but they may not be familiar with your Alliance. Tell us a little bit about it, please.
Okay, so Rescue South Africa Civil Rights Alliance is an alliance of patriotic South Africans who came together concerned about what is happening in our country, especially the violation of people's human rights. One example of that is children's rights are being violated almost every day in South Africa. They be denied food. Children are dying of hunger in a country that has the largest economy on the continent of Africa. There's about 8 million children estimated to be suffering from malnutrition to the extent that growth is stunted in this country, while ANC politicians are stealing millions, billions of rands. That we believe is a crime against the people of South Africa. There's race-based laws, there's our economy that has been destroyed in this country because of the policies of the ANC. Their connections to rogue nations, their conflict with the United States of America, the largest economy in the world, which is not helping the people of South Africa. And so we're losing thousands of jobs, unemployment is soaring, poverty is deepening, and people are really suffering in this country. And then if you look at the politicians, they're living high on the hog. They're stealing money, they're building mansions, they have 10, 12 luxury cars. It's reported often in the media. While all of this is happening, while the ANC is denying people their rights, they are living like royalty. This has to be wrong. This has to be a crime against the people of South Africa. There's so much of it happening, Colonel, that I can't even keep track of it. The people in this country, every single day, they're reading in the media about somebody stealing 2 billion. Even the health department is being looted by even the nephew of the president of this country, South Africa. So these are the kind of things that's happening all the time. It's estimated now that 1.5 trillion rand has been stolen out of our economy. 1.5 trillion taxpayers' money has been stolen by politically connected people, while people suffer and die in our country. That is the current situation in South Africa, the reality on the ground. And so this group of professionals, communications experts, legal professionals got together and said, we have to do something. We love this country. We can't watch this country die before our very eyes. We can't allow a group of corrupt individuals just steal and rape this country of its resources. We have to do something. And the doing something is forming this alliance. It's a loose alliance, not a closed-off thing. So anybody that wants to join us and say, yes, we want to be part of this, we want to hold these politicians accountable for their crimes against the people of South Africa, you can join us. There's many ways you can do things, but what we have is a group of lawyers, senior counsel, advocates, attorneys, legal professionals, law professors, all got together and are putting these various cases together to apply to the High Court to hold the ANC accountable for violating or denying the rights of people, their constitutional rights. And this is the work we've been doing since late last year. The organization is formed. We're raising the funding now. We're getting our message out to people so they understand. We're saying, stand with us, support us, raise your voices, because we cannot, as a country, continue the way we're continuing. South Africa is running out of time. Our debt is spiraling out of control. Our crime is out of control in this country because our police, our law enforcement is controlled by organized crime. This all happened under the Cyril Ramaphosa presidency. And people are looking for relief. People are getting more and more concerned, desperate. There's cities where people are not getting water for up to weeks, and water tankers have to come up, and people have to fill buckets with water. They haven't got water to drink. They haven't got water to wash. And so we're kind of becoming a primitive nation in the most advanced, largest economy on the continent of Africa. South Africa is regressing, and it has regressed into a crime-ridden mafia state under ANC-led governance.
Well, Errol, that's a pretty damning statement about what's happening in South Africa, and I have to say that I cannot disagree with anything that you said there. I've been covering these issues for a number of years, but the 1.5 trillion estimate, I suspect that's a very low-end estimate, how much money's been looted. I mean, we have things that have never been accounted for. In 2020, when the COVID scam started, South Africa received $5.3 billion in revenue from money from the IMF, from the African Development Bank, and $1 billion from the new BRICS Bank. All of that money came. It's never been accounted for. No one's talked about it. They just got another $1 billion plus from the World Bank here just a few months ago. All seems to be money that's greasing the skids for the ANC. But let's go back to one of those topics you talked about, because there's a lot of things to unpack here when it comes to failures of the South African government. And let's be honest, it's been the ANC for 30 plus years that's run this country. And even under a situation where they're just a plurality party in a government of national unity, a grand coalition, they still run the country as if there's no one else involved in the government. So we can lay the blame, I think, squarely at their feet. But I want to talk about the thing about children starving. A few years ago, I covered a story which just a few newspapers in South Africa mentioned. They quickly moved on from it, I suspect after the government told them to quit covering it. And that was in the Eastern Cape, in Geberga or Port Elizabeth, Nelson Mandela Bay, whatever we're going to call it today, that metropolitan area. 16 infants and small children, toddlers, starved to death because the local government there, when it wasn't under the DA's control, I'm not promoting the DA by any measure, but when it was not under the DA's control, returned 54 million rand back to the national government because they couldn't spend it. But the money was earmarked for nutrition programs for infants and small children, yet 16 children starved to death. You would think this would be national news and people would be up in arms and march in the streets, but there was virtually no reaction from anyone in South Africa. Is this what you're getting at when it comes to children being neglected? You mentioned stunting, and I see Ramaphosa mentioned stunting in his State of the Nation address for the first time yesterday, but I've been talking about stunting for years. And of course, for those who don't know, stunting is a consequence of insufficient protein before the age of 5. Children have to have a specific amount of protein or their brain winds up not developing fully. So the children starving and stunting, are these things that you're concerned about, or that one of the reasons why you're going after this issue?
Yeah, so it's one of the biggest things that concerns a lot of people, because we keep on seeing these reports of children dying of hunger in South Africa, and it boggles the mind. We have the largest economy on the continent of Africa. No children should be starving to death from lack of food in South Africa. It is horrendous. It is a crime against humanity that this is happening. Then you have the Children's Institute at the University of Cape Town. They've done some research into this matter, and they've discovered that an estimated 8 million children, listen to this, 8 million children, this is about the population of Switzerland, 8 million children are suffering from severe malnutrition because of poverty. And even though we have school nutrition feeding schemes. It is riddled with corruption by ANC cadres and ANC-connected people. So children are not getting the nutrition that they need. So they're stunted. Their growth is stunted. That's 8 million children in Africa's largest economy. If that doesn't drive people crazy, I don't know what will. How can people continue with their lives and just go on like everything is okay when this is happening in our country? And the ANC is directly responsible for this. It's because of their policies. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. Children are still going to schools with pit latrine toilets and dying in those toilets. And they're stealing billions. They're allocating billions to education, but you don't see those billions being spent where it's supposed to be spent. So where is it spent? It's been stolen. It's been mismanaged. It's been misappropriated. They use all these fancy words, but it's just words to describe stealing. Politicians stealing, corrupt people, incompetent people deployed into positions that they don't have the skills or the competency for. But the one thing they do well and that is steal. And so they're stealing the wealth of this country. They're stealing food from children. They're stealing nutrition from children. They're stealing the future of the children in this country because they're not even getting decent education that they can go on and study and have a chance at life. That is the current and grim reality in South Africa today. And so that one of the cases we're taking to ANC to court is the violation and the denying children of their human rights. In our constitution, there's about 12 clauses that give children rights, education and housing and food and nutrition and all kinds of things. They're denying children almost all of that. So we have to challenge this at the court. We're going to the High Court. If we have to, we'll go to the Constitutional Court. And if we exhaust all the court systems in South Africa, we will go to the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, and charge the ANC with crimes against humanity. That we believe is serious enough. We believe the crimes, the evidence is there of serious crimes against the people of South Africa. And it's done deliberately. It's not by accident, it's deliberate, because when you're denying, when you're stealing, when you're destroying infrastructure that people depend on, like water infrastructure, and people can't get water, people are waiting for waterborne diseases to break out, and people begin to die in our cities because they don't have water. There's water being contaminated, people opening their taps and bad smells coming out of it. We have engineers in this country, we have skilled people, but they're not appointing those people and putting them in positions of authority to fix all these problems. They want the ANC cadres to be controlling all of these systems, and the result of this is the collapse of our infrastructure. There's whole cities falling apart. In the Eastern Cape, it's just collapsing. Not far from where I am, Knysna is facing day zero. No more water. Why? Because an ANC mayor, coalition and ANC mayor destroyed the infrastructure, ran everything into the ground so that the provincial government of the Western Cape had to suspend that government, come in and try to fix what they did there. So, if we think about this, how do we as South African citizens sit back and allow these people to do what they are doing when they are elected to govern in the best interest of the people, to fix things? Like Ramaphosa made his State of the Nation address. We're going to address this, we're going to fix this. The question is, how did it get so bad? How did our police fall under the control of organized crime kingpins? How did that happen? It happened under Ramaphosa. Yep. He appointed Senzo Mkhunu as the Minister of Police. The commissioners of police of the different provinces is appointed by the minister, by Ramaphosa, with his okay. All of these people, they didn't just take those positions, they were appointed by the president, and they were vetted and okay. And they're all crooks. The Madlanga Commission now is exposing all of this malfeasance, this crime. South Africa is currently a mafia state. Yep. We have water mafias, we have construction mafias, we have timber mafias, We've got taxi mafias where if people want to hire a hitman, you go to the taxi industry and you can do that. People have been killed. Whistleblowers here have just been executed. We're still waiting for people to be arrested. There's a woman, Babita Dukaran, she blew the whistle on the looting of Tembisa Hospital, and they killed her. Yep. They executed her, and they haven't found the person responsible, the mastermind behind it. They haven't found.
The true tragedy with Babita Dukaran is that she wasn't really even a whistleblower. She simply reported an irregularity she came across. She didn't even come out as a whistleblower. She just said, "Hey, listen, this doesn't make sense," and they killed her because of it.
Absolutely. Why? Because it was going to expose people that were looting a hospital. Can you imagine looting a hospital, a medium-sized hospital in Gauteng that people depend on? It's a public hospital. They looted it over 2 billion rand. That is the health department budget in Gauteng. Yep. And the guy that did that stole over 820 million and built a mansion and bought 4 Lamborghinis, not 1, not 2, 4. He's the nephew of Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, from his first marriage. Then Ramaphosa says, "I've never met this guy, I don't know him." And then people started posting pictures of Ramaphosa with this guy. He did know him. And there were pictures of him. And so you've got to ask yourself, what in the world is happening in our country? And these people are attacking Donald Trump in America. While all of this is happening, while South Africa has become a haven for criminals and mafia types, and people are dying and suffering, they're criticizing other people instead of fixing the problems in our own country. That stems right from the top, right from the top. All our ministers are implicated in some form of corruption or other. We had a Zondo commission. Took 3.5 years, 1 billion rand was spent on it. 3 thick volumes, reports were released, making recommendations because they investigated, they gathered evidence, they had testimony from witnesses. And this Mtlanga commission, Zondo commission made recommendations to the president. You know what happened to that report?
Zero charges, 0 convictions.
Nothing.
Yep.
Nothing. It's lying somewhere gathering dust. He did nothing about it. And many of the people implicated in serious corruption in this country, South Africa, are still in government positions, high positions, earning big salaries. And Ramaphosa has not touched them. Now they're having a Mtlanga commission and many other commissions and task teams and investigations. So Cyril Ramaphosa does not want to use his constitutional powers as the president, use his authority to end the corruption and prosecute the people he needs to, because many of them are in his party. So he's protecting them and leaving them to continue with what they're doing to the detriment of the people of South Africa. And then, so to avoid making the tough decisions, what does he do? He establishes a task team, a commission of inquiry. Just recently, the Iranian Navy was involved in naval drills with China and Russia, with the Navy of China and Russia, and he apparently ordered that they shouldn't be, they must rescind the invitation, and they ignored him, the South African Defence Force. The thing continued, it embarrassed him, and what should he have done? Fired the Minister of Defence, fired the head of the SANDF because they disobeyed the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of South Africa. He didn't do that. He appointed another commission of inquiry.
An illegal commission, mind you, because only members of the military can be part of that, and they put retired judges on it.
Exactly. Please find out why these people disobeyed me. Everybody knows why they disobeyed his orders. They don't take him seriously. They've done it before. The head of a general in the SANDF went to Iran and met with the officials of the Iranian army and promised, we will stand with you and all of it. And then later, Ramaphosa said, our government does not approve of that message. He doesn't have any authority or approval from the president to go and visit a foreign nation and make the statements he did. Did he fire him? No. He's still in his position. So Ramaphosa has no authority. He has no spine. He has no backbone. He has no leadership. He's a mockery. People are mocking him because he can't lead this country any longer. He's staying in that position to feather his nest, to pad his CV as a wannabe
Great
globalist.
great statesman. He wants to be known as a great statesman. He's accomplished something. You know, there's a lot of irony in the things you talk about here, not the least of which I've been covering for many years, is when Ramaphosa rose to power. You know, this was on the heels of the state capture era and the Guptas and Zuma. And he likes to refer back to that. But I noticed lately he's talking less and less about the state capture era, although he did mention it in the State of the Nation address, because it's pretty obvious to even the most blind man on the street that this is worse than state capture, what's happening under Ramaphosa. Let me unpack a couple things there, Errol, because you got quite a bit in there. The first one, you mentioned going to the ICJ. That may be a problem because the ICJ is a state-to-state organization. It's the International Court of Justice. You have to be a state to take on another state. Maybe you can find a state sponsor that will take on South Africa for this, kind of like the Gambia did against Myanmar for genocide. So people asked the Gambia to take up this case, which was the novel concept of one state taking another, even though they arguably have no dog in the fight because there's no Gambians in Myanmar. But it worked, and they're finally actually having the trial now this year, 6 years later. South Africa never joined that case, despite the ANC claiming to be a paragon of virtue and standing up for human rights. They never joined that case. 6 other nations did, including Canada and the United Kingdom, but South Africa did. But then, of course, they took Israel to the ICJ for the same thing. What I just want to say is that for you guys as a private organization, might be a bit of a challenge, but there are venues to take this. Now, I want to come back to because there's a lot of things here, back to the education thing. You talked about the pit latrines. There were 3,700 pit latrines over 30 years after the ANC took over the government. That has been reduced, but there still remains 176 pit latrines. We have these horrific stories of 4-year-old toddlers, suffocating human feces, falling into these things because the money is stolen. And then I've always considered this a crime against humanity, and this is the lowered expectations when it comes to education. Just yesterday at the State of the Nation address, President Ramaphosa claimed that we have the highest matric rate ever. But when you make 30% the passing mark for 3 subjects and 40% in your first language, and you consider those people have passed when they're functionally illiterate, how in the world can you with a straight face tell people that things are good? I mean, they are putting people into the jobs market for jobs that don't exist, who are also unqualified for any job other than sweeping floors. I consider that to be a crime against humanity by misleading the public. Do you think that's a fair statement?
I think that's a fair statement. There's a whole of other things that is wrong with our educational system. For example, somebody did a survey and found that, for example, I can't remember the numbers, but if there were 2 million people in grade 10, by the time that grade 10, 2 million got to grade 12, then there were 700,000. So they asked them the question, what happened to 1.3 million students? They dropped out. They didn't get to matric. Right, and they dumbing down education, lowering the standard pass rates, like you say, to 30%, just to push students through. And then when they get out of the education system, they're not educated properly well enough to go on to university, to study engineering, to study all the things that the skills that South Africa needs, because they undereducated. Key educators in this country have been doing interviews and talking about the deficiencies in our educational system, but nobody's listening because the liberal media is kind of pro-Ramaphosa and they're kind of playing cover for him because he's not being bullied by Trump. He's standing up against Trump. So as long as he's doing that, they're painting him as a hero. Regardless of what is happening in the country, the fall down, our debt to GDP ratio is now 76%, and it's going to rise higher than that. So we loan money up to the hilt, which I think our children and grandchildren is now going to have to pay back. They're loaning money. They haven't got money to fund many of the government programs. The welfare budgets are ballooning. It's out of control. They're just giving away more welfare and more welfare because more and more people are being unemployed. The tax base, the people paying tax, working and paying tax, is getting smaller and smaller. So there's, I saw a survey by Dawie Roots recently that said 1.6% of taxpayers is paying about 60% of the tax. That's the kind of situation we have in South Africa, and it's unsustainable Everybody knows it's just unsustainable. We cannot continue. We're going towards a tipping point where the welfare thing is going to explode in this country because we just can't continue to do that. And then we have so many people, business people, high earning people, experts, professional people leaving the country because there's no future for them. We have young people that's going to university overseas or going to university here, and when they got their degree, they leave because they believe there's no future for them in the country. They feel unwelcome here, and we need those kind of skills. And that is because of the ANC's policies. And I say the ANC's policies. They are 40% government. They form the government of national unity with the DA and other parties. But they're ruling like they're still the majority party in the country, like they have absolute majority. They're running foreign policy, every kind of policy, and the others are just sitting there and watching them destroy the country. So people are asking what the hell is happening in South Africa and with our governing structures. Many people believe that Ramaphosa is not in control. It doesn't appear to be in control of government. If you look at the South African Defence Force, if you look at the South African police services, people just doing their own things, he's lost control and he's just sitting tight. And it's 2 years to come up. So he goes to the G20 and he goes to Davos and he makes speeches and looks like a great world leader. And I think that's kind of his legacy. I was a great world leader on the stage. I stood up to Trump and worked with the European Union and all those kind of things. While the country he's been elected to govern and preside over, that he's ignored completely and allowed it to collapse into what it is today. And so South Africans are not impressed with Ramaphosa's globe-trotting and his speeches on the world stage. Nobody's impressed with that because when you open your taps, there's no water. There's potholes the size of craters in the streets of the cities. 75% of traffic lights are not working and not being repaired. Unemployment is soaring. Youth unemployment is over 60%. People are getting poorer. Companies are closing down and moving out of South Africa, and more people are losing jobs. All of this under an ANC government. And then he stands at the podium at the State of the Nation address, makes more. We can have bullet trains and smart cities.
Smart cities, yeah, it's ridiculous.
And you can't even give people water, basic things like sanitation and removal of refuge. You can't get that right. And you're promising all these highfalutin ideas. People are not even interested in bullet trains and smart cities. They're asking, can we have water? Can we have that little thing, water? Can we have our traffic lights working? Can you get the police to fight crime and stop the 70, 80 odd murders per day of people dying in our country? It's like a war zone here. Can you do that and leave the bullet trains for a while? Focus on the things that people are concerned about.
But Errol, I don't think that the government has the time for that. They're busy changing Graff-Reinet to Robert Sobukwe. If they want to honor Robert Sobukwe, maybe they should put him back in the anti-apartheid museum instead of whitewashing him out of history. But no, let me switch to something else here, because you guys are also looking at this. Now, Section 25 of South Africa's Constitution, mind you, a majority government passed that Constitution and enacted it in 1996, written by mostly black South Africans in this case, and it was adopted by mostly black South Africans. That has Section 25 about expropriation of property. Now, we have something called eminent domain in America, where the state can take the property in the public's interest, but you have to receive fair compensation. Now, we can have a philosophical argument about, whether it's fair to take someone's property, and I don't think it is, but that's a whole other thing. I mean, we have it because when they built railroads, if you build railroads like this, they're very inefficient. So you build them straight, on flat surfaces, and unfortunately, people own land, so you expropriate it and you compensate them. But in the case of South Africa, Section 25 explicitly says you must get fair, equitable compensation. It must be agreed upon by all parties. But Ramaphosa famously at Davos, you mentioned him as a globetrotter, trying to have this global reputation, went to Davos last year and with a flair signed the expropriation without compensation bill, which, by the way, makes South Africa ineligible for the Africa Growth Opportunity Act. We should point that out. Signed it, but he'd actually already signed it 34 days prior, which most South Africans didn't really understand. But what's important there is that any bill that is signed by the president within 30 days, if 1/3 of the members of parliament sign a petition and take it to the Constitutional Court, the Constitutional Court has 30 days to review it for constitutionality. He waited 34 days, thereby evading the law and preventing anyone in parliament from challenging that, because I think it might have been challenged. There was just about 34% of the members that might have voted. So South Africa's own constitution is being violated by a law that's unconstitutional, but it goes beyond that. Now, this doesn't have a legal binding effect, but the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is something South Africa is a party to, and the ANC talks about. Article 17 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights explicitly protects private property rights. It states that anyone has the right to own property alone or in association with others. So like the Ingenioma Trust would be a good example like that. And no one shall be deprived arbitrarily of their property. This was adopted in 1948. Of course, the South African government at that time did not sign it. However, the South African government, under majority black government, has signed up to this. They believe in it, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and they've embraced it through the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and also by signing the agreement in the post-apartheid era. Yet they're not willing to live up to the standards. Now, I've told people, Errol, from the very outset, I've warned them, this is not about land. Yes, land can be confiscated, but the Constitution addresses property. Property includes stocks, bonds, retirement accounts, buckies, jewelry, flats, apartments, anything that's property they can take. And I said this will happen to black, brown, and white South Africans when the government finds it appropriate. And here's the really insidious part of it, Errol. I'm sure you're aware of this, and I want to get your take on it. This expropriation without compensation law is not for the national government. It allows the national, the provincial, and the local government, the likes of Panyazi Lesufi, can take your property at a whim just by claiming it's in the public interest. This is pretty frightening, and the world should be paying attention to this from my point of view. What do you say, Errol?
I agree fully with you. I think there's a lot of people that understand that this is a very dangerous law, expropriation of land without compensation. They know how bad this thing can go, that the government can make any kind of excuse and take land in the interest of national interests, even when it isn't. It could be that ANC cadres want the land for themselves and the government can expropriate it under some excuse. So it can be abused. And how do we know it will be abused? Because the ANC is abusing everything. They're abusing all the laws of this country. And so people don't trust them, and especially with a law like this, grabbing people's property. Most people are thinking that they're going to take farmland, but it doesn't end there. That's not what the law says, that it's just, limited to farmland. They can take your house, they can take your personal property, your buildings, they can take anything in the national interest, and they declare and they decide what the national interest is. So it's a very dangerous law, and I think that's why President Trump said that that's a dangerous law, and they have to change that, because United States of America cannot do trade deals with South Africa unless they deal with those kind of issues. Farm murders, making that a priority crime, getting rid of that. Once people's right to own property is taken away, this is Marxist, communist kind of doctrine and ideology. Once that begins to happen, when people lose their right to private property, a nation begins to collapse. That democracy does not exist anymore when people lose a fundamental right like property ownership. So South Africa is heading in a very dangerous, very dark direction. And I think there are other democracies that's watching this and seeing this and watching to see what's going to happen. And of course, Ramaphosa has made lots of promises. It's going to be done in this way and that way. But look, he's promised a lot of things. He's promised, before the last municipal election, that we're going to do better. We are going to select better councillors. We're going to vet them, and we're going to make sure that they have the skills to serve the people and make sure that their service delivery. He made that promise, and look what has happened after that. Johannesburg is lying in ruins. The Eastern Cape, Nelson Mandela municipality is lying in ruins. And many other municipalities, many of them bankrupt. They got no services, and they've stolen all the money, so they're bankrupt as well. So you cannot rely on the president's promises, the ANC's promises, when they say we're going to do things in a certain way, because we have now 30 years of evidence behind us that we cannot trust the ANC with anything. We cannot, simply cannot do it. How any South African can vote for the ANC it's mind-boggling. If you see the carnage and the mess and the destruction and the theft and the fraud and the racketeering and the money laundering facilitated by the ANC, if you see it, what they've done to this country in just 30 years, how anybody can vote for this is beyond me. How any South African with any kind of self-respect can vote for a party that has done this to a beautiful country with so much potential. One of the most beautiful countries in the world, with all the natural resources and everything you need. We could be one of the wealthiest countries in the world if we had a government that governed efficiently and honestly and in the best interest of the people. If we had that, we'd be very, very well off. But we're not. We're a dying country. We're a collapsing country. We're a country in debt, in unemployment, and all kinds of things. All these murders every day in this country. It shouldn't be like that. We can run a very efficient police and law enforcement ministry. We could do that if we put the right people in the right positions. But the ANC refuses. Ramaphosa refuses to do that. After Bekele, he's sent some Mkhunu, and look what's coming out now. And when people warn them about appointing qualified, honest people, you either call a racist, a counter-revolutionary. They've got all these names that they tag and label people with when people are fighting for the survival of the country, for 62 million people. And so that's what Rescue Civil Rights Alliance is doing. We representing 62 million South Africans that don't have a voice. We want to fight for them, for their rights that's being violated and denied every day. And the way we can do that is form this coalition, this alliance with like-minded people, patriots that love South Africa and believe in the future of this nation. Say, stand with us. Let's take this ANC to court. We believe that the ANC operates not like a government. It operates as like organized crime. It's an organized crime network that exists primarily to steal and loot taxpayers' money to enrich their own people. And millions of people are suffering. Children are dying. People are out of work. All of these things are happening. And it shouldn't be like this, Colonel. We have to change this. And one way to do that, we're doing our part. And there's other organizations that's fighting. We're not the only one. But we're saying we all must work together. And we must take the ANC to court. Every corrupt politician, not only the ANC, it could be EFF, MK, it could be DA, wherever there is corruption, and we got evidence of that, we're going to challenge them, we're going to take them to court, we're going to hold them responsible on behalf of the suffering people of South Africa.
Well, Errol, you've talked about a few things there, but I have to say that I think I disagree. I think that they organized a very lovely State of the Nation military parade, and given that they purchased for $7.1 billion Corvettes, Type 209 diesel submarines, and Gripen fighters, as well as Hawk lead-in fighters and a few helicopters, I'd have to say that given that the 18 Gripens, only 2 are operational, only 1 qualified pilot can fly those 2 aircraft. I did see that they flew 3 of the Hawk lead-in fighter trainers yesterday, so I was very impressed by that display. It was pretty amazing. No, but seriously, during the Belofteland documentary that CakeNet recently published, I was interviewed in that out in Idaho, and I said pretty much the same thing you talked about there a few moments ago, that this is a tragedy beyond all imagination. This is a country with a human capital. It once had the university resources. The world's first heart transplant took place there. Incredible mining technology, doing the deepest mines on the planet. That's all fallen apart. It is a country with the people, with the topography, with the mineral resources, with the agriculture. Even though only a portion of the country is suitable for rain-fed agriculture, about 12%, nonetheless, it still is a breadbasket. And it's nothing. It's become the joke of Africa under the ANC and Cyril Ramaphosa in particular. Now, one thing I want to ask you here is, I'm going to start using this because we've heard this for years when it's applied to Jacob Zuma. Jacob Zuma, of course, is accused of corruption in the arms deal from 25 years ago, and then some. And he's yet to be convicted, even though there's prima facie evidence the man has committed crimes. People have described his defense as the Stalingrad defense. He's a Stalingrad. Every time that the courts come, he tries to object to the prosecutor, Billy Downer. He tries to delay it. And the man's in his 80s. He's an octogenarian now. So his defense is just hold, and I'll never go to jail. I'll just hold up with Stalingrad. I submit to you that that's the same approach that Cyril Ramaphosa is using towards his presidency. He's never had a power base. Cyril Ramaphosa is, I think my hand is up there. Let me take my hand down. I lifted my hand, it comes to the screen. So Cyril Ramaphosa has never had a power base. He's a Venda, no natural. The ANC traditionally has been a Xhosa-based power structure, and then with Zuma's ascension, more of a Zulu, but still those are the two groups that have predominance there. So he's never had a power base, and you could see it. I said it from the outset. When he selected his first cabinet, it was full of Zuma stalwarts because he was weak. He didn't really run the country. And I agree with your assessment that he doesn't run the country. It's run by others. And he just runs around and takes the glory and acts like he's the big man on campus when he's just a sad, pathetic figure that's being controlled by a cabal of gangsters. Is that a fair assessment?
I think so. I think so. He's just hanging on to complete his term. And that would explain why he won't take the tough decisions, why he won't prosecute senior people in the ANC who's implicated in massive corruption. The media is exposing this thing on a daily basis. Even the deputy president of the ANC, Paul Mashatile, he's implicated in so much corruption, including his sons, his family. The media is exposing, but Ramaphosa is doing nothing about it. Why? Because he knows if he starts going after the senior people in the ANC, they're going to recall him from his presidency. The NEC will vote him out, just like they did with Thabo Mbeki. When Zuma took over, they took Thabo Mbeki out.
Yeah, the Polokwane massacre.
Exactly. Zuma never finished his term either because the Ramaphosa team took him out. So he knows that that's what will happen to him. So he's biding his time, and he's protecting all the corrupt in his ranks. He's protecting them. But the more he protects them, the more he destroys South Africa and the people of South Africa, because we're suffering because all these people are still in authority and they're allowed to steal and loot the resources of the country with impunity because Ramaphosa is too spineless to do anything about it. So he's not a leader. He's in the position, but he's not a leader, and he's not leading this country. He's not presiding over this country. He's not a president. He's a caretaker. He's a puppet. He's put there so that the ANC can continue with their thieving, their looting, their money laundering, and all these things. That's what's happening to this country. And more people have to wake up to the reality of it. We're not going to have a country. South Africa's economy is going to collapse under the weight of all this theft and fraud and corruption.
It's already collapsing, Errol. I mean, we see British American Tobacco is withdrawn. Almost every single ferrochrome smelter is closed. There's only one left. It's about to close. The infrastructure is gone. You know, a few deals by Google and Amazon to have call centers, you know, or warehouses is not going to save South Africa's economy. It's really sad. You know, Errol, the whole thing with this here, I would argue that, as you're alluding to, that South Africa is already collapsing. I mean, it's you look at GDP growth last year was 0.5%. They claim it raised to 1.3%, but I dispute those figures. And even if it is 1.3%, South Africa needs 10 to 15 years of 8.5% annual GDP growth just to begin to catch up with the poverty that the ANC has created. 3 times as many black South Africans live in abject poverty as under the National Party. How shocking is that? And the infrastructure collapse. It's really pathetic here what's happened in the country. And I submit to you that it's going to be tough. But one of the problems I would say, Earl, and let me get your take on this. One of the fundamental problems with South Africa is your democracy itself. First off, you've just hit on the nail on the head, which most South Africans don't link this. You have no control over who the president is. You don't vote for the president. You vote for parties, and then they get to pick the people that go into parliament, whether you like them or not. You know, it's funny because Winnie Mandela was convicted of the kidnapping of Stompie, and she could have been convicted of much more, including his murder. She was complicit in that by an apartheid government. Okay, all right, racist government. Well, let's accept that. But then she was convicted by the ANC government by being a corrupt official and using her position to enrich herself. So she's a twice convicted felon, yet she sat in parliament. And we talk about corruption. And we've got Zandile Gumede, 168 counts of fraud in Durban, yet to be convicted in that case. Dr. Zwelin Kizi, he's been found by the Hawks to be guilty, even though they didn't do a trial. He said, we've got the evidence here. All he did was resign his health minister. He still sits and draws a 2 million rand salary in parliament. And then we've got the Vrede dairy farm scandal, Ismagashuli, the asbestos tenders, the Armsgate, Oilgate, Travelgate, PPE theft. And every time you turn around, Tembisa Hospital now, Charlotte McKexa Hospital, the list goes on and on and on. Criminals are not punished in South Africa. They just run the clock out, the Stalingrad defense. And it's really sad to see. But I would say that the fundamental reason why this is a problem, because you, Errol, and my audience have no say in who the president of South Africa is, who your members of parliament are. All you get to do is vote for a party, and they pick the scumbags that represent you because they don't represent you. Just like the ANC deploying its caters to the Western Cape, those people aren't colored. They aren't Afrikaans speakers. They aren't even Xhosa. We're talking about Venda and Zulu come down there who are loyal to Luthuli House, not to the citizens of South Africa. And I think fundamentally, whether it's the DA or it's the ANC or it's MK, whoever runs the country, those people owe their fealty and loyalty to a political party, not to the citizens of South Africa. And until that is corrected, which isn't in the near future, it's a grim outlook. That's my take on it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree fully. We were trying to get this corrected with giving people the right to elect their representatives to parliament. Because if you ask any South African, who is your representative in parliament, they wouldn't know. All they do is they vote for a political party, and then the power is given to that political party to put whoever they want to in parliament. So that's what the ANC does. And you can see the quality of people that's put into parliament, people that is implicated in corruption and theft and fraud and even murder. They're sitting in that parliament because they're part of a political party. The people that voted for them cannot say anything about it. What do those people in the political party in parliament, who do they serve? They serve the party boss, not the people that elected them. They serve
Earl, sorry to interrupt you, bro, but it's even worse than that. You're right. It's corrupt people, but it's also stupid people. I mean, truly stupid people. Yes, when Jan van Riebeck came here 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago. Jan van Riebeck didn't come there 2,000 years. This is stated in Parliament by a member of Parliament speaking in Parliament for the ANC. The Bantu, the Nguni speaking peoples weren't even in South Africa 2,000 years. They didn't arrive until 1,600 years ago when they crossed the Limpopo and then the Zambezi rivers, or the Zambezi and then Limpopo. So these people don't even know history. They don't even know where they're coming from. And frankly, I'm not to be abusive, but a lot of them don't even know their own fathers. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah. So we have to change our system, similar to the US system, where voters can, in a voting district, can vote their representative into parliament. Why is that important? So they can hold them responsible for the legislation they pass, for the policies that's made. We don't have that power. It's not in the hands of the people of South Africa, the voters. The party bosses tell the members of parliament how to vote, and they vote according to the party line, not what the people of South Africa want. And so that's why our system has collapsed. That's why it's abused to the extent it's been abused, because the party bosses are the real power in South Africa. And you can see even the ANC lost 17% of their vote. From 57%, they went down to 40%. But they're still running things. They're still controlling everything, with the other smaller parties giving them the power. Look at the decisions they made on foreign policy and how that has alienated South Africa, made us look like we're part of this gallery of rogue nations, Iran and Cuba and Venezuela and China and Russia, all human rights abusers. And the ANC says we fight for the human rights, we fight for equality, we stand up and we respect international law. Look at the people they're hanging out with, look at their friends and their allies. It tells a totally different story. And of course, all of these foreign policy blunders and bad links they have is impacting on the people of South Africa. So the ANC is ideologically driven. We were comrades in arms when we were a liberation movement, and they supported us in the liberation struggle. That's fine. You can respect that, but you're a government now. You're no longer a liberation movement fighting in the bush to free your people. You're the government now. Act like the government and make good decisions for the people, especially the poorest of the poor that depends on our government to make right decisions to build the economy, grow the economy, create jobs, which they promised every election cycle, but never do, right? They lying to people, misleading people. Then just before an election, they go out to the people, make more promises, give them a T-shirt, give them a food parcel, a packet of chicken wings, vote for the ANC, we're going to do this for you, we're going to do that for you, be careful of the white man, if he comes back, he's going to do this and that to you. They use fear tactics. People vote for them, and they just do the exact same thing. Everybody knows that in this country, what they've done, how they abuse the poor in this country, how they steal from them. And Colonel, this has to end. And that's why we're fighting now, and we formed this alliance, Rescue SA Civil Rights Alliance. We're asking people, go to our website, www.rsacra.co.za. Go check it out, see how you can support us. You can say, yes, we want to link arms with you. We want to stand as South Africans. Together, we want to fight for South Africa. We want to rescue South Africa from this downward spiral. And we want to fight for the people of South Africa. You don't have to be political, belong to any political party. You can say, I'm a South African, I love South Africa. I believe in the potential of South Africa. I'm fighting for this nation and for all its people, and that's good enough. We've got to link hands and do this.
Well, Errol, you've just stolen my thunder. That's pretty good. Well done. Right here in my notes in this yellow box, which you can't see because of green screen, it says your organization, and I put in yellow, what can folks do? You've just hit on that. They can go to your website. I don't have the link below this video, but I will include it after the interview so people can go find it. Just find it directly below the video, and that's how they can participate and help out. So do you have any sense of, what sort of movement do you have here? You started, I believe, with some intellectuals perhaps, and they've got together, or maybe some business owners, I'm not sure, and you started there. And how is this resonating? What was the date you started, and how do you feel about the development of this alliance so far?
Yeah, we started in about September, October last year. We formed the organization, and since then, more and more professionals have joined the alliance. We have a lot of legal professionals, senior counsels, advocates, attorneys, law professors, all part of this movement, because it's essentially a movement that is going to take the government, corrupt politicians to court. But we have other people joining us. We are speaking to business people, wealthy business people. We're going to need money to fund these court cases. And so we're beginning to negotiate with people. We're getting a lot of support online. If you go in and you see the videos that we put out, the interviews, most of it is reaching 100,000 views. People are posting, they're speaking. Thousands of people are speaking out and saying, we support this. We stand with you. You've got to do this. It's about time. We cannot just remain silent any longer. So it's growing. The movement is growing, and it's a civil rights grassroots movement, and that's how we want it. Ordinary people just coming together and say, let's save South Africa. And so once the money starts coming in, once business people start giving and saying, we support you, go to court, hold these politicians accountable for their crimes against the people of South Africa, we're going to start seeing this movement. I think our first case, the race-based laws case, might be filed at the High Court in about 2 months' time. And then all the others, we're working. There are teams of lawyers headed by a senior counsel that are working on all the different cases. And once we have the funding, we're going to start taking this to court, and we're going to start challenging. There's people that saying to us, you're not going to get anywhere. The judiciary is controlled by the ANC, their people. And I said, well, if we all took that attitude, we're all going to sit with folded arms and watch this country die before our eyes. We're not taking that attitude. We're not prejudging the matter. We're going to fight this. We're going to gather people, professional people. We're going to gather evidence, and we're going to go to court, and we're going to fight this thing. Even Nelson Mandela said, everything seems impossible until it's done. So we don't say it is impossible. We're fighting a noble cause, a just cause, and we continue fighting till we win, because we are in the right. We are the people of South Africa. This country belongs to us. It's being destroyed by an organized crime network called the ANC. We have to stop it. We have to rescue this country That's why we call Rescue South Africa Civil Rights Alliance. Just ordinary people coming together, linking arms and say, fight for South Africa. It is worth it because this is a beautiful country, South Africa. It has massive potential, but we need a good government, honest people, competent people that would govern in the interest of the people of South Africa. That's all we're asking. I don't think it's a huge demand.
No, Errol, it's not a big ask, to be honest there. You know, I'm sure you can understand why some people are skeptical or they're frustrated, but it's a mixed bag, I would say. And I appreciate the approach you guys are taking, trying to take them to court. AfriForum has done this many times. Solidarity has done it. Other groups have done this. DRSA has been a friend of the court with amicus briefs in the past. They're not really doing much right now, I don't believe, but they have in the past. But I mean, it's a mixed bag. And so, for instance, during the COVID nonsense, the North Gauteng High Court declared that a racist policy by the ANC to give COVID relief funds only to historically disadvantaged groups was perfectly legitimate, even though it violates the Constitution. Now, that was later overturned, but of course, the intent was to drain all the money that had been set aside. So by the time it was overturned, there was no money left for anybody else, and it was never refunded. Now, we do see some cases that just never seem to get results. As I mentioned, some of those corruption scandals. But we also have, despite the fact that he successfully evades all sorts of things like calling for the murder of South Africans based on their skin color and claiming it's some sort of heritage song, we have seen a conviction of Julius Malema recently. Now, we'll see what the sentencing involves. I mean, it ought to involve jail time, but I'm not going to hold my breath. After all, he still sits in the Judicial Services Commission. He's a member of it, although he's not in the hearings. And he's also sitting in Parliament debating with people in front of the Mhlanga Commission. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. This guy's a convicted felon. He shouldn't even be there. But we have seen a conviction. What are your thoughts on Malema's conviction and potential sentencing? I suspect a suspended sentence and a fine. That's probably all he's going to get. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm hoping he gets a jail sentence so that he's removed from Parliament. I don't think he should be in Parliament for the hate speech that he has uttered. And we're thankful for the conviction. And an attorney on our team is responsible for putting that legal team together to get that conviction against Julius Malema. So you can see that when you fight and you keep on fighting, eventually you have success. You must have conviction. And that's what's driving us. But I think Julius Malema should not be in Parliament. He should be not in any kind of authority or power because he's a populist. He's called for the murder of white people in a country that is now a non-sexist, non-racist democracy, and we're still using race and color to attack people. When the ANC, when Nelson Mandela said, "We passed that, apartheid is gone. We are all South Africans. We love each other. We work together to build one nation." All of that is gone. The ANC has undone most of the good that Nelson Mandela tried to do by bringing the country together. They have driven everybody apart again, using the race card to bring division and hate and disunity in our country. That's why the ANC is bad for South Africa. The more they fail, the more they try to blame other people, other groups for their failures and cause hate and division. So I think we need, there's place for a new political party in South Africa. People are not happy with the largest political parties like the ANC, even the DA. People are not, a lot of people are just losing trust and hope and faith in them. The MK party, the EFF, people are not happy with these parties, so they're looking elsewhere. So there is a gap now for a political party of South Africans that want to govern in the interests of the people, honest people, competent people, that will take up this challenge to turn South Africa around, not just make promises, but do the work, do the hard work, and be dedicated and devoted to this country and its future and its potential. So we're heading to a local government election, municipal election in November this year. We're going to learn a lot about the lay of the land once we get those results, and then moving on to the general election in 2029. I think the ANC is going to lose a lot more vote, a lot more support. The political landscape is going to change, I think, a lot as we head towards the next general election. But the problem is the time is running out for South Africa. Time is running out, and it's running out quickly. When you look at our economy, our debt, the borrowing, I think we owe about 6 trillion rand, and we're in all kinds of trouble. Unemployment is soaring, crime and violence is increasing. It's like we have no government, the way things are happening in this country. So we need God to intervene in South Africa and just save this nation, rescue us. And it's going to be in the hands of people that love this country. Again, that's going to stand up and have the courage of their convictions to speak up and say, we're going to act, we're going to stand together. We can't just sit back and allow politicians to destroy the country for 62 million people. We can't sit back and watch that happening. So that's my call, and my appeal is to South African. South Africa, please stand up. Forget about ethnicity and color of skin and language and all those things. Just look at yourself as a South African. I'm a South African. I live in South Africa. I want all South Africans to thrive. And if we all think like that, we will work and support each other and to be able to do that. Don't be caught out and be deceived by the wiles and the tactics of corrupt politicians, where they try to divide you by race and by language and by all these kind of things. Don't fall for that trap anymore. You did so during apartheid, don't do that anymore. So we don't want that. We are non-racist, non-sexist. We are South Africans. We're going to act as South Africans, and we're going to speak as South Africans. And we want our government to represent South Africa, not black, not white, not colored, not Indian, but all South Africans. That was the promise of our Rainbow Nation in 1994, but we've lost that. Can we regain it? Yes, we can. All things are possible. We can, but it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of conviction and a lot of purpose and determination and unity from ordinary people, turning away from politicians and just saying, we're going to do this ourselves. We're going to save this nation. I think it's possible, Colonel.
Well, Errol, I would not disagree. I think it is possible, but the clock is definitely ticking. For many years now, an average of 82 South Africans, mostly educated, some wealthy, some not, have left the country and settled abroad because they can't function in South Africa, either because of racist laws or the corruption or the collapsing services. That's 82 professionals per day. That number is now ticking up with the tax base being eroded, with over 100 South Africans being removed every single day and relocated to the United States as part of this refugee program. And they have the nuclear clock and the debt clock here in America, showing how close we are to nuclear Armageddon and how bad we are with the debt here in the United States. But I think for South Africa, that clock is at like 11:57, almost midnight. It's pretty close to unrecoverable. You could save it. I mean, look, if someone made me king for a day in South Africa, I'd dissolve the parliament, I'd dissolve the racist laws, I would scrap the police and start over with honest people who are vetted and not corrupt, and we do proper training, give them the resource of forensics, go from there, and then fix educational standards. But I can't be king for a day. So South Africans have a long road ahead of them. They have a tough road to hoe. The ANC has done such carnage to the country in 31 years that even if we turned it all around today, it's going to take decades to get things back to where they were. I think that's a fair statement. What do you think, Errol?
I think it's a fair statement, but we have to start. We have to start now. It might be a long, hard slog, but at least we're starting to rebuild the nation. But we cannot just sit by and watch it degrade and collapse and fall apart. And we look the other way, and most people say this, we hope somebody will do something. People often say that to me. I say, you know who that somebody is? It's you. It's every one of us. Stop looking at somebody else to do something. You say, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to join this alliance and this movement, and we're going to work together to do it. So every single South African that believes that South Africa is a beautiful country with beautiful people that has a lot to offer, has potential, stand up and fight for this country. It is worth it. And if it takes 20 years, 30 years to turn it around and make it a successful country, so be it. We came out of decades of apartheid, and we were all very hopeful and euphoric in 1994 that this country is going to turn around. We knew we had huge problems to overcome, but people still joined hands and was prepared to do that. and then it all fell apart with starting with Zuma and then Ramaphosa. But we can do the same thing again. So it proves that South Africans are resilient people. We've been here before. We've been in a mess. We've been in like hopeless situations, and we've come through it. We're standing at another crossroads, and so we have to make tough decisions. And I think the people in South Africa have what it takes to work together to say we've come out of apartheid and we're going to come out of this mess that we've got ourselves into the same way we did, and we're going to turn this country around. I believe that.
Well, Errol, the one thing is certain about it, it's worth the effort. South Africa's worth saving. It really is. The people are amazing. It's a wonderful country, and they really are worth it. You know, there was this, I think, silly phrase that came about back in the 1970s, an ad campaign here in America. It was a public service announcement, and the phrase was, "Life, be in it." I think that's appropriate here. You know, don't sit on the sidelines and expect someone else to fix the problem. I think that's been a major part of the challenge in South Africa for the past 30 years is people just look the other way and hope that someone else will fix it. But the solution is you. Get involved. All right, Errol, any final comments? I'll let you wrap up here, and I want to thank you for your time. But go ahead. Any final words for folks you might want to share with them or how they can, once again, to participate in the Alliance?
Yes. So we want people to join us. We are not a political movement. We are a civil society, grassroots organization, a movement. And we want to fight for our country and for the people of this country. That is our vision and our goal. And so go to our website, www.rsacra.co.za, and go check it out. If you can make a donation towards, never mind what the amount is, every little bit helps in getting the funds together so we can take these cases to court. We have some of the most talented people. You'll see that on the website. Highly skilled, talented South Africans, patriots, legal professionals that are giving of their time freely to move this thing forward. So join us, pray for us, and pray for South Africa. We believe this country has so much potential. And if we all stand together and join hands and work together, we will save South Africa. We will rescue them, rescue this nation from the clutches of evil, corrupt, self-serving individuals. And we've got to do it, and we have to do it now.
Well, folks, that's Rescue South Africa Civil Rights Alliance Director, Mr. Errol Naidoo. I want to say bye-bye, donkey, ke ala boa. Thank you so much for your time, Errol. It's a pleasure. Perhaps we'll chat again sometime in the near future. Give us an update, progress since you got this court case.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you for the opportunity, Colonel.
It's my pleasure. All right, I'll let Errol drop off there, and I'll wrap up this stream. We'll get him out of there for a second. So I thank you all for tuning in today. Appreciate you being here. I hope that you found this a useful discussion, a conversation with Errol about what's going on. I promise to get the link to their website underneath this. Some questions coming up, who funds them. They're privately funding. He just said you can go to the website, you can donate to them if you'd like. But thank you so much, Errol. It was an interesting conversation, something that I hadn't had time to really delve into. So for me, it was a voyage of discovery, this conversation with Errol, as it was for many of you. Usually when I do my interviews with all of my guests, I know everything I need to know about what's going on. In this case, a little bit of voyage of discovery to discover what they're doing. So interesting. Thank you all. You'll be redirected to the news program, which starts in a little under an hour. If you want to hang around, take you automatically there. We'll see you for the news. And after that, don't forget, we have another refugee interview today. This with the Smith family out in San Diego, sunny Southern California, and their adventure thus far. So that's coming up a little bit later this afternoon. So 2 more broadcasts today. And then I'll be watching hockey this afternoon. The women, USA women, are playing a quarterfinal first game in the knockout round of the Olympics, and we'll see how that goes. All right, thanks, everybody. Be sure to hit that like button if you haven't done already. We appreciate your patronage of the program. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you hopefully shortly for the news. Cheers.